Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something that, well, touches every aspect of our lives.
hmm
Our emotions.
Mm.
We all navigate this whole spectrum of feelings, right? And let's be honest, sometimes those feelings can just feel huge, overwhelming.
Absolutely. I mean, experiencing that full richness, that whole range, it's really part of being human. But, when you feel constantly tossed around by them or you just struggle to make sense of what's going on inside,
Yeah,
it can really take a toll on your well-being.
exactly. So for this deep dive, we've got some really fascinating material. It unpacks these practical strategies for not just like managing emotions,
Right.
but for truly understanding what they're trying to tell us, how to regulate our responses, and ultimately how to kind of integrate them for a fuller life. Think of it like getting to know your internal landscape better.
And our goal here is really to pull out the most valuable insights,
Mm.
giving you some concrete, science-backed approaches you can actually start using today.
Okay, let's get right into them. The material we're looking at, it starts by laying some groundwork.
Yeah.
What exactly are emotions?
So the sources explain them as fundamentally these complex neurobiological responses. They start in brain areas like the limbic system, and these signals carry really critical information.
Okay.
Like think about fear. That's your brain basically saying, hey, potential danger here. Joy signals something good, something beneficial has happened.
Right.
Sadness often comes up with loss, helps us process and adapt. And anger. And anger. Well, anger can flag a perceived injustice or maybe that a boundary's been crossed.
That's quite a shift, thinking of them less as things that just happen to us and more like data, vital information.
Yeah.
Because my gut reaction, especially with the tough ones, is often just, push it down, shut it off.
That's a really common human tendency. But a key point that comes up again and again is that the emotions themselves, they aren't inherently the problem. It's usually our responses to those signals that cause the trouble. Things like avoidance or suppression, or maybe those impulsive reactions. Those are the patterns that often lead to difficulties.
So the first step, maybe the most crucial one, is adjusting our relationship with them. Like instead of immediately slapping a good or bad label on an emotion,
Exactly.
we need to just acknowledge it's there, try to figure out what it's saying, and see its potential value.
Precisely. It's about creating that little bit of mental space. Just observe the feeling without that immediate judgment. That gives you a chance to sort of decode its message before you decide on a, thoughtful way forward.
All right, so we're tuning into our internal comm system. What are some tangible ways the sources suggest we can get better at, interpreting and responding?
Okay, so the material lays out 5 core practices. The first one is cultivating emotional awareness.
Right.
This basically means setting aside maybe a few minutes each day for some real self-reflection, asking yourself, okay, what am I actually feeling right now? And maybe, why might I be feeling this?
That sounds simple enough, but I can totally see how in the rush of just daily life, that gets skipped over easily.
Oh, it definitely can. But interestingly, the simple act of actively naming your emotions, like internally saying, okay, I'm feeling anxious, or this is making me feel excited, that actually does something in the brain.
Really?
Yeah, research suggests this labeling thing can help regulate activity in the amygdala, the emotion center. It can make the feeling seem a bit more manageable, maybe less overwhelming.
Huh. That's fascinating. Like putting a name on it gives you a bit of distance or control maybe, which is calming in itself. Okay, what's the second technique?
The second one is a really powerful in-the-moment tool, breathing before you react.
Okay.
So when you feel that surge for frustration, sadness, nervousness, whatever it is, the sources strongly recommend you intentionally pause. Just focus on your breath.
That makes sense. Intuitively, take a beat.
Yeah.
Are there specific breathing exercises they mentioned?
Yes, one that's highlighted as particularly effective is the 4-7-8 breathing method.
Ah, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, so you inhale quietly through your nose for a count of 4. You gently hold your breath for a count of 7. And then you exhale slowly, completely through your mouth for a count of 8.
Okay, 4, 7, 8. What's the science bit behind why that works so well?
That long exhale is the key part. It actually stimulates the vagus nerve,
Right.
which is a huge part of our parasympathetic nervous system. That's our rest and digest system. By activating that, you directly counteract the fight or flight response that often kicks in with strong emotions.
Okay.
And that physiological shift just gives you this crucial window of time for a more considered response instead of just that immediate, maybe impulsive reaction.
Okay, that's a really concrete, actionable tool. Love that. What's strategy number 3?
The third practice is all about recognizing that deep connection between our emotions and our physical bodies, using movement to shift your mood.
Hmm.
Think about how stress or anxiety often shows up physically, right? Like tension.
Oh, absolutely. When I'm stressed, I feel it right away. Shoulders tight, knot in my stomach, that kind of thing.
Exactly. So movement could be a brisk walk outside, maybe putting on music and just dancing around, even some gentle stretching it can be a super effective way to release that pent-up emotional energy.
Right.
The sources even point out that as little as 10 minutes of moderate physical activity can lead to a noticeable drop in anxiety and a lift in your overall mood, partly thanks to endorphins and other good brain chemicals.
So getting your body involved can directly influence your emotional state. It's almost like short-circuiting a negative feeling with action.
You could put it that way, yeah. It gives a healthy, immediate outlet for those physical sensations that often come with intense emotions, and it can trigger those positive neurochemical changes too.
That's a great reminder. Okay, strategy number 4 for improving our emotional landscape.
Number 4 is the practice of reframing negative thoughts. This pulls from cognitive reframing principles, basically, consciously working to change how you interpret certain situations.
Okay, so this sounds like actively challenging that inner critic, those automatic negative thoughts we all have.
Precisely. And the sources give some good examples. Like, instead of thinking, I failed at this, you could actively reframe it as, okay, this was a learning experience. Now I know what to do differently. Or if you feel ignored because someone didn't respond, instead of jumping to, they're ignoring me, you could consider alternatives like, maybe they're just really busy, or perhaps they're having a rough day themselves.
So it's about actively looking for other ways, maybe more constructive ways, to see things. It's not denying reality, but realizing our first take isn't always the only story or the most helpful one.
Exactly. Our initial thoughts are often just driven by old patterns or assumptions. Reframing is about consciously checking those assumptions and choosing a perspective that feels more balanced and, well, ultimately better for our emotional state.
Makes sense. And the fifth practical approach they highlight.
The fifth is about prioritizing connecting with people. The sources really emphasize this fundamental human need for social connection.
Yeah.
And how engaging with people you trust could be a deep conversation, could just be a quick text check-in with a friend, can have a really significant positive effect on your mood and emotional balance.
It's such a vital reminder, isn't it? We're not really built to handle all this emotional stuff completely alone.
Absolutely not. We are social creatures deep down. And those interactions, they played a critical role in helping regulate our nervous system, our emotional equilibrium. Just sharing what you're feeling with someone empathetic that can bring support, validation, sometimes even a totally fresh perspective.
Okay, those are 5 really solid, concrete strategies people can start trying out. But the sources also talk about building more, like, long-term emotional strength through habits, right? Tell me about that.
Yes, exactly. The focus kind of shifts here from those immediate coping tools to more about cultivating long-term emotional resilience. They use this analogy of an emotional gym.
An emotional gym, I like that.
Yeah, it suggests that consistently practicing certain things can build up our capacity to navigate emotional challenges over time, like working out a muscle.
Okay, it emphasizes that ongoing effort. So what are some of these emotional exercises then?
The sources highlight several key ones. Journaling, for example, just regularly writing down your thoughts and feelings. Over time, doing that can really help you spot recurring emotional patterns, figure out your personal triggers, and just process complicated feelings in a more constructive way.
It's like creating an external map of your internal world. That could offer some real insights.
That's a great way to put it. Another really powerful habit is intentionally practicing gratitude.
Yeah.
The sources suggest making it a daily thing. Maybe just noting down 3 things you genuinely feel grateful for. It sounds simple, but doing it consistently can gradually shift your brain's focus, helps counteract our natural tendency to dwell on the negative.
Like a deliberate recalibration toward appreciation.
Exactly. Then there's meditation or mindfulness. Even just 5 minutes a day focusing on your breath, observing thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them, that can significantly boost your awareness of what's happening inside. Gives you more space to choose your response instead of just reacting automatically.
Cultivating that inner observer, that quiet space.
Precisely. And finally, they really underscore the foundational role of sleep and nutrition.
Can't forget the basics.
Right. They point out that our brain, the organ running the emotion show, needs proper rest and good fuel to function well. Poor sleep, an unbalanced diet. They can directly mess with our ability to regulate our moods. It's all connected.
It's such a clear reminder of how linked our physical and emotional well-being really are.
Absolutely. So just like regular exercise builds physical strength, these habits, practiced consistently, build up our emotional resilience. They equip us better for handling life's inevitable ups and downs.
Now, the material we're looking at also touches on some common struggles people have with their emotions. I think it's really important to cover these because it normalizes things that can feel quite isolating when you're going through them.
Oh, it's crucial. The sources do address a few specific scenarios. For instance, people who feel things very intensely. Very often, maybe they'd say, I just feel too much all the time.
Yeah.
The sources identify this as heightened emotional sensitivity, and for that, they recommend grounding techniques.
Okay, like what?
Things that bring your awareness right back to the present moment through your senses. So focusing on your breath, really noticing the feeling of your feet on the floor, or maybe engaging in some kind of gentle rhythmic movement.
So these techniques help anchor you back to the here and now when the intensity feels like it's sweeping you away.
Exactly. Then there's the opposite experience, feeling kind of emotionally disconnected or numb. Someone might say, I don't really feel anything at all. The sources call this emotional numbing. And the recommendation there is to gently, carefully start re-engaging with sensory experiences. Maybe paying close attention to sounds around you, the warmth of a cup in your hands, or recalling a pleasant memory. Small, mindful steps to sort of gently reconnect.
Like gently coaxing those feelings back into awareness rather than forcing anything.
Precisely. And one more, for people who experience sudden, intense emotional outbursts, they might say, I just explode without warning.
Right.
The sources suggest this often comes from emotions being suppressed or ignored over time until they just build up. So the advice is to practice checking in with yourself more often throughout the day, noticing those smaller feelings before they escalate to that explosive point.
It's like taking regular emotional temperature checks to prevent a boilover.
Exactly. Addressing these common struggles is helpful, I think. It offers reassurance and gives some practical starting points for people who find their emotional experience particularly challenging.
This has been such a thorough, really insightful exploration. So maybe to bring it all together, what's the kind of core message we should take away from all this?
I think the central idea is that building a healthier relationship with your emotions isn't really about chasing constant happiness or trying to get rid of all the negative feelings.
Right. That's not realistic.
Not at all. It's more about developing the skills, the capacity to understand your emotions, to decode the valuable information they're giving you, and then to respond in ways that genuinely support your overall well-being and, your growth as a person.
And it really comes back to starting small, doesn't it? Those manageable steps.
Mhm.
A few mindful breaths, jotting down a feeling, reaching out to a friend, taking that short walk.
Exactly. Every single consistent, small effort adds up. It builds that greater emotional awareness, better regulation, and that deeper resilience over time.
So for you listening, as you reflect on this deep dive into improving emotional health, maybe consider this. Which of these strategies or habits really resonates with where you're at right now? What feels most relevant to your own emotional experiences?
Mm.
And maybe think about how consistently bringing even just one of them into your daily routine might start to shift your perspective and deepen that understanding of your own inner world.
Thanks for watching.